On January 7, 2009, at 7:04 in the morning, an Indian CEO hit send on an email. 5 pages. A complete confession of $1.5 billion in fraud. And then, he didn't just send it to the police. He sent it to the company's board, to regulators, to the media, to everyone. Within 24 hours, $2 billion in market value evaporated. 53,000 employees discovered they were working for a lie. And the man who built India's 4th largest tech company was sitting in a prison cell, having destroyed his own empire with an email. In the next 20 minutes, you're going to discover how one of India's most respected men forged one of the greatest corporate theaters in history, why he confessed in such a bizarre way, and the disturbing detail that the mainstream media buried about this case. I know what you're thinking, another corporate scandal? I've seen this before. But here's the difference. This isn't Enron. It's not Theranos. This is a case that the Anglophone media covered for exactly 3 weeks in 2009 and then completely forgot. No Netflix documentary. No Hollywood movie. No YouTube video diving deep into the true horror of this story. And what makes this absolutely insane is that Ramlingar Raju, the CEO, didn't need to confess. Nobody was investigating. The fraud was working perfectly. He was getting richer every day. So why the hell did he destroy everything with a suicidal email? First, I'm going to show you how he built the perfect illusion for 7 years. Then, we're going inside the room where he typed that confession. And at the end, there's a detail about the timing of this confession that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about corporate fraud. Let's start in 1987, when everything was real. Hyderabad, India, 1987. Ramlingar Raju is 28 years old, has an MBA from Ohio University, and a vision to transform India into a global technology powerhouse. He found Satyam Computer Services. And here's the ironic part, Satyam in Sanskrit means truth. Remember that. Unlike other Indian entrepreneurs of the time who focused on cheap manufacturing, Raju bets on something radical, premium IT consulting. He wants to compete with IBM, Accenture, not just do code outsourcing. And against all odds, it works. In 1991, Satyam lands its first major international contract. By 1996, it's listed on NASDAQ. By 2000, it has clients like Nestle, General Electric, and the US government. The Indian media calls him a pioneer. Forbes puts him on lists of most powerful Indians. The Indian government gives him national awards. And in 2008, 1 year before the collapse, Satyam is voted by the World Council for Corporate Governance as having the best corporate governance practices in India. You can already see where this is going, right? But here's what makes this case psychologically fascinating. Most of the initial success was real. Satyam had cutting-edge technology. It had real clients. It had 53,000 real employees doing real work. What started as a legitimate company slowly transformed into complete financial theater. And it all began with an apparently harmless decision in 2001. The dot-com bubble just burst. Tech companies are collapsing globally. And Satyam, which had grown 80% per year during the 90s, suddenly stops growing. Revenue stagnates. Profit margin falls. And Wall Street, which had valued Satyam at astronomical multiples expecting infinite growth, starts getting impatient. Ramlingar Raju has a choice. Admit that explosive growth is over, watch the stock drop 60 to 70%, and rebuild slowly. Or he invents numbers. Start small. Increase revenue by 3%. Inflate profit margin by 2%. Nothing that would raise red flags. Just enough to keep analysts happy and stocks rising. But here's the problem with accounting fraud. It's addictive. Because once you inflate one quarter, the next needs to be bigger. And the one after that, even bigger. Otherwise, the drop in growth reveals the lie. So what started as 3% became 10%. Then 20%. Then, let me show you exactly how he did this. Because the creativity here is disturbing. Method 1. Phantom invoices. Satyam created fake invoices for real clients. So if the company actually provided $10 million in services to Nestle, the book showed $15 million. The extra $5 million? Completely made up. How did auditors not catch this? Because Satyam didn't send these fake invoices to clients. They only existed internally. Method 2. Fictitious bank accounts. When you inflate revenue, you have a problem. The fake money needs to go somewhere. So Raju created hundreds of fake bank accounts in Satyam's name. Bank statements? Photoshopped. He literally edited PDFs from banks like HSBC and Citibank, increasing balances by hundreds of millions of dollars. Method 3. Ghost employees. At the height of the fraud, Satyam had 13,000 employees who didn't exist. Real names on payroll. Salaries deposited monthly. Except the money went to accounts controlled by Raju. Think about that. He had to create fake identities, fake social security numbers, fake bank accounts, all to simulate 13,000 people working at a company of 53,000 employees. And it worked. For 7 years. When everything collapsed, investigators discovered the true scale. Real revenue, $2.1 billion. Declared revenue, $2.7 billion. Difference, he invented 30% of the company's revenue. Real profit, $61 million. Declared profit, $649 million. Difference, he multiplied profit by 10. Real cash in bank, $66 million. Declared cash, $1.5 billion. Difference, 95% of the company's cash didn't exist. Now you understand the scale of the illusion. One of India's largest tech companies was 95% theater. But here's the question nobody in the media properly asked. How did PricewaterhouseCoopers auditors, one of the big 4 global auditing firms, not catch this for 7 years? And wait until you find out what was happening behind the scenes in December 2008, 1 month before the confession. December 2008. The global financial crisis is at its peak. Lehman Brothers just collapsed. Markets are in panic. And Ramlingar Raju is cornered. Because maintaining a $1.5 billion fraud during a global economic collapse is complicated. The problem, he had inflated Satyam's cash so much that now investors were asking, why aren't you using this money? Why is it sitting in bank accounts? Raju needed to do something with the phantom cash. And his solution was so insane, it almost seems like a joke. On December 16, 2008, he announces that Satyam will buy 2 construction companies for $1.6 billion. Companies that, coincidentally, were controlled by his family. Let me repeat that. He tried to use fake money to buy real companies from his own family. The response was instant and brutal. Shareholders exploded. How is a software company going to buy construction companies? What strategic sense does that make? And why from the CEO's family companies? The Indian media called it the worst corporate deal in Indian history. Satyam's stock fell 55% in one day. And 4 of the 6 independent board members resigned immediately, publicly saying they hadn't been informed of the deal. Raju was forced to cancel the acquisition 12 hours after the announcement. But the damage was done. Now he had shareholders furious demanding explanations, the board saying they no longer trusted him, Indian regulators initiating investigations about the deal, and a giant fraud that was weeks away from being discovered when auditors started asking questions about why the company had so much idle cash. Between December 17th and January 6th, Raju tried everything. He tried to resign as CEO. The board refused, saying it would create more instability. He tried to sell all of Satyam to another tech company. None wanted to buy because of the chaos from the failed deal. He tried to forge more documents to buy time. But his own accounting team started asking questions. And here's where this becomes psychologically fascinating. Sometime between January 2nd and 6th, 2009, Ramlingar Raju, who had lied to the entire world for 7 years, who had deceived PwC auditors, regulators, global investors, made an incomprehensible decision. He decided to confess everything. Not because he was caught, not because he was being investigated, but because he wanted to. And how he confessed is what makes this case truly bizarre. January 7, 2009, 7:04 in the morning, Indian time. Ramlingar Raju sits in his office in Hyderabad. He opens his laptop, and he starts typing. 5 pages. Complete breakdown of the fraud. Exact numbers. Methods used. An unambiguous admission of guilt. And then he hits send, not to a lawyer, not to a confidant. He sends it to the entire Satyam board, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the equivalent of the American SEC, the the Bombay Stock Exchange, and the New York Stock Exchange. The letter began like this. It is with deep regret and a tremendous sense of betrayal that I must inform the board that Satyam's financials have been manipulated. This was like riding a tiger, not knowing how to get off without being eaten. He described exactly how he forged bank statements, created fake invoices, inflated non-existent interest. He admitted that the company's balance sheet showed $1.04 billion in cash that didn't exist. And the most disturbing part? He described himself as someone who had entered a deep abyss and was confessing to relieve his conscience. 7:30 in the morning. The Bombay Stock Exchange receives the email. Trading of Satyam's stock is immediately suspended. 8:15, Indian regulators call Satyam's office. Nobody answers. 9 o'clock, Indian media starts reporting. The headlines are apocalyptic. Satyam CEO confesses billion-dollar fraud. India's Enron, the biggest corporate scandal in Indian history. 10 o'clock, Hyderabad police issue an arrest warrant. 11:30, Ramlinga Raju voluntarily surrenders at a police station. He's crying. He tells police, "I couldn't carry this burden anymore." Noon. At Satyam's office in Hyderabad, 53,000 employees discover, simultaneously, through online news, that their company is a fraud. Some cry. Others go into shock. Many simply leave the office and go home, not knowing if they'll have a job tomorrow. An employee interviewed by the BBC said, "I worked here for 8 years. I thought I was building India's future. Now I've discovered I was building one man's lie." Within 24 hours, Satyam's market value drops $2.3 billion, a 78% fall. The World Bank suspends all contracts with Satyam. The U.S. government initiates review of government contracts. Shares of other Indian IT companies fall 8 to 15% from contagion. American institutional investors lose $1.5 billion. India, which was trying to position itself as a trustworthy global tech center, had just suffered the most devastating reputational blow in modern history. And all because one man sent an email. Here's what doesn't make sense. Ramlinga Raju was not being investigated. The failed acquisition attempt had raised some eyebrows, but nothing that auditors couldn't cover with more forged documents. He had deceived PwC for 7 years. There's no reason to believe he couldn't deceive them for 6 more months until things cooled down. So why the hell did he confess? Theory 1. Psychological collapse. Some corporate psychologists argue that Raju suffered a kind of burnout from lying. Maintaining a dual reality for 7 years, being a respected CEO publicly while managing massive fraud privately, generated unsustainable psychological stress. The phrase in the letter, "like riding a tiger," suggests he felt the fraud had taken on a life of its own and was out of his control. Theory 2. He knew he was done. There's evidence that in the days before the confession, senior finance officers started confronting him internally. Maybe he realized discovery was inevitable and wanted to control the narrative. Confessing first gave him an appearance of remorse that could reduce his prison sentence. Theory 3. The silent conspiracy. And here's the theory that the mainstream media completely buried. 2 weeks before the confession, the Indian government initiated a separate investigation into land transactions involving the Raju family. Transactions totaling $300 million. Some Indian investigators believe Raju knew this investigation would inevitably lead to discovery of the Satyam fraud. So he confessed to corporate fraud to potentially bury or distract from the investigation into the land deals. Why? Because in India, corporate fraud has sentences of 7 to 10 years. But government corruption and money laundering? Life imprisonment. Confessing to the smaller fraud may have been an attempt to hide the larger fraud. We'll never know for sure. Because Raju refused to talk about it during the trial. 2009 to 2015, Raju and his brothers remain in prison during the trial. April 2015, all are found guilty. Raju receives a sentence of 7 years in prison, time already served, plus an $804,000 fine. PwC India is banned from auditing Indian companies for 2 years and fined $6 million. In Satyam, it was acquired by Mahindra Group for $600 million, 1/4 of its pre-scandal value, and renamed Mahindra Satyam, then integrated as Tech Mahindra. Of the 53,000 employees, about 5,000 were laid off. The rest kept their jobs but had salaries frozen for 3 years. In Ramlinga Raju, The man who built a $2 billion empire and then destroyed it with an email? He was released in 2017. Today he lives in Hyderabad, doesn't give interviews, never publicly explained why he confessed. And the business world moved on, as it always does. Here's what disturbs me about the Satyam case. It's not the fraud itself. Corporate frauds happen. They always have. What haunts me is these. For 7 years, Ramlingaraju edited documents in Photoshop, created fake bank accounts, forged signatures, and deceived PwC auditors, one of the big 4 global firms, without raising a single red flag. No control system worked. No auditor asked the right questions. No regulator checked the numbers. And when the house of cards finally fell, it wasn't because detection systems worked. It was because the fraudster decided to confess. What does that say about how many other Satyams exist today? How many CEOs are sitting in offices, maintaining frauds that work perfectly because they decided not to send the email? That's the real buried story of the Satyam case. It's not about a man who confessed. It's about a system that failed so completely that the only reason we discovered the truth was because the criminal decided to tell. And if that doesn't keep you up at night, it should. If you were as disturbed by this story as I was researching it, leave a like on this video. Because stories like this, corporate scandals that the mainstream media buried, need to be told. And if you want to see more cases that nobody covered, the next video I'm releasing is about the collapse of the Carrion Group in Hong Kong, 1983, a 33-year-old billionaire, a $10 billion company, and a murder that was never solved. That video will be here in the card. I'm Robert Semiers, and this was Buried. Thanks for watching The Truth with us.